Hey everyone, Nicole here. I want to talk to you today about a reading strategy that I found online that I absolutely loved when I found it. I found it on Reading Rockets, which I think Felicia and a few other people had talked about, a website that I find extremely informal and interesting and extremely helpful. The strategy is called Semantic Gradients. I know I talked about it in discussion boards previously. It's just an awesome little strategy. But before I go too in depth into the strategy itself, I want to give you a little bit of information about my student and why I chose this strategy. My student, she just finished second grade. She's going into third grade, and she actually got held back a year. So she would have been going into fourth grade. So her reading level was a little bit lower, but something that I found really interesting when I was doing the IRI testing with her, she had amazing comprehension skills. Her comprehension skills were kind of astronomical to me. She was reading at a much lower level than a third grade level, but her comprehension was still really spot on, even for the miscues that she was making that were what you would classify as a major a meaning miscue. She was still getting those higher level inference and meaning comprehension questions correct. So I was just kind of floored at her results in the IRI testing, and one of the issues that we really have to work with her is sight word work, which there's not a whole lot of fun strategies to work with sight words other than the best one to do would be flashcards, which that's straightforward to the point, drilling. You just kind of have to know them kind of strategy. Here's a flashcard. Let's drill them over and over and over again. You can put up a word wall at home. You have word walls at school is one of those. You just kind of have to know it. So going in, I wanted to work on something that she had a little bit of issues on for the comprehension. What astounded me was she was getting the lower level comprehension questions incorrect, like the detail questions and some of the vocabulary questions incorrect, but she was getting the inference and the sequence questions correct, which are higher level and a little bit harder. So I was amazed that she was able to get those, even though her miscue with the pattern of miscues, she probably wouldn't have been able to get those. So one of the things that I wanted to try to focus on with her was vocabulary and comprehension using context clues. So I found the semantic gradient activities with Reading Rockets. And it's a really cool tool that you can use anytime you want during the reading process. It can be done before reading, during reading, or after reading. One of the best ways that you can use it with small groups. You can use it in a whole class setting for us teachers. You can use it individually with students, which is one way that I plan if I work with her, or if I plan on giving the corrective plan to her parents and, sitting down and telling them how to do these activities. If they want to do it individually with her, I wanted to give some examples to them. So you can do it individually. But one of the best ways and one of the examples that I found online was that a teacher would read a book in class, and then students may not pick up on some of those vocabulary words. One of the examples was, I think it was enormous or largest. And what you would do is you would read the story and you would pick out a vocabulary word that has a range of relative words. So size is a very good example, and I do have some examples for later. And you order the words in a scale, in a gradient, or a lot of teachers like to call it shades of shades of words. So you put them in a range based on the relationship. And it helps students build meaning between words, between vocabulary. And it's just a great tool for students to be able to learn relationship between words. And it also helps them become stronger readers because they'll be able to see the, pardon me, they'll be able to see the synonyms between words, and they'll be able to pick apart larger words that they may not necessarily know the definition for. So they'll be able to connect them together, and they'll be able to distinguish between these relationships of words and deepen their understanding between related words. So it also will help just enhance their vocabulary overall, and it'll enhance their writing as they get older. So for a third grade student to be able to use this kind of activity, it's an awesome one. I do have an example. So what one way you could do it is you pair students together after you explain, okay, I'll give you a list of words, and then you could give them strips of poster board or strips of paper like this, and you can give them words, and you tell them, here's a list of words, and what I want you to do is talk with your partner and discuss what order you think these words should go in. So I have an example put together, and then you'll ask them, after you discuss it and you lay them all out, you'll glue it onto the paper. So the example I have on here, it's backwards, but it would be microscopic, tiny, petite, small, little, big, large, huge, giant, humongous. So what you would ask the students to do before they tape or glue it onto the sheet is they would just lay them out on a table in an order, and they would discuss with each other what order they would go in and why. So it would be really easy for them to just kind of want to lay them out and glue them on really quick and race to see who gets it done first, but you want them to practice that discussion technique. It builds that conversation and it builds their critical thinking, because some students may not know what petite means, and they may switch around tiny and petite, but there really is no one correct way, because some people may think that petite would go, you could flip around tiny and petite. You just have to come up with the correct reasoning. So you never know which way a student will go. As long as their reasoning is sound, it could be correct. And there's a lot of different ways you can differentiate this. And that's one part of this activity that I love, is that it can be differentiated in a bunch of different ways for students and what works best for them. So one other example that I have is you could, instead of doing a strip method, you could make it look like a staircase, like this. And one way to differentiate for students is, instead of just giving them a blank strip and asking them to do it, you could give them the base words. So this example, at the bottom of the staircase, we have the word slow, and at the top of the staircase is the word fast. And then the words that would go in between, we have crawl, limp, prance, stroll, jog, meander, dart, sprint, run, walk. So what they would do is they would take these, and then they could place them where they think they would go on the staircase before they glue them down, but they definitely know that fast is at the top and slow is at the bottom. So this is just a different way that students can visualize how it goes up in a continuum, and it's not just from left to right. So you could make it look kind of like a number line, you could make it look like a staircase, you could make it go from top to bottom, you could make it, I've seen on Pinterest, when I was doing more research, they made it look like ice cream cone stacked with different scoops. So the smallest, or in this example, slow, would be the first scoop all the way at the base of the cone, and then fast would be all the way at the top. Or if you wanted to make it like a math type of one, you could go back to the strip format. And instead of giving them the words at the end of the gradient, you could give them, say, if you had average as your word, you could put it right in the middle and then ask them to go each direction from the gradient to make it a little more challenging, depending on your student's ability level. So that's just a bunch of different ways you could differentiate. So there's a lot of different ways you could do it. So that's one way that I really like this activity, is it's really versatile in many different ways, especially because you can do it before, during, or after reading. You can have it as individual or group work, or as a whole class activity, or you can bring the class together and work and discuss after they work in small groups and get a consensus on where did you put large in your strip or on your staircase. And it's just an awesome way for students to really get their brains working and engage some of that critical thinking and the reasoning skills, and to work out and talk out the problems. And as always, you'd be able to be there to help them talk through the issue, any issues they may have, or if they get stuck. And it's just one of the great tools, and it's very versatile. You use it in science and social studies, language arts, and you could even have students illustrate as well. That would be a really good one with the size examples. So you could have them illustrate something that's microscopic, tiny, and petite, and go up on the continuum. That would be a really good way for them to visualize, not only in the strip or the staircase format, but then they would then have those images, those illustrations, to help them visualize what the difference between the words would be. So that's just one activity that I thought would really help my student with some of those vocabulary words and strengthening her reading, just to give her some more exposure to different words she may have never seen before, may have never heard before, but are all interconnected and all related in different relationships. And it's just super interesting, I thought. And one connection that we were able to make back to our Lit Across the Curriculum and reading class, our friend William Nagy, that was where he talked all about the relationship between words, and I was able to pull in some research from him, and he did a lot of research on the benefits of these kind of strategies for students, and it really helps them with these relationships in words, and it helps them become more fluent readers because they're drawing those connections and they can see the difference, and it's just giving them a more vivid visualization of the story in their minds too. So it's just an awesome little strategy that I think a lot of students would benefit from and would be awesome to use in your classroom. So thank you for watching, and I hope you all have a great day.